Welcome to Social Sessions. We're here with a truly extraordinary episode of Social Sessions today. We have the honour of sitting down with a man whose life story reads like a gripping novel of courage, resilience and boundless positivity. He goes by many names, but on Instagram he's known as Tcav, the embodiment of inspiration, the epitome of unwavering strength. Imagine a person with unparalleled workout stamina, the only individual to have walked the path of both the French Foreign Legion and the elite US Navy SEALs. Taylor Cavanaugh, or Tcav, defies expectations and transcends boundaries, showcasing not only physical prowess but an unyielding spirit that has conquered challenges most could only imagine. So, welcome to Social Sessions. Taylor, how you doing? Great to have you on the show.
Dude, I'm doing very, very solid. Thank you guys for having me, and thank you everybody for listening.
Obviously, like, you've became a bit of kind of Instagram, you blew up on Instagram lately. Can you talk a wee bit about kind of how that came about? Like, obviously, we know we'll go into kind of your history later, but like your profile on Instagram went huge. Do you think that's down to just kind of your hard work and ethics that you've got going?
Yeah, man. Dude, so I wasn't on social media for many years, right? I had a fake profile with a fake name, Jarek Stonewall, back in the day when I was an active duty SEAL, but only for a handful of months also. And I just did away with it. It was causing me some complications, and so I decided to do away with it. And so I was off social media for, man, probably about 6 years, and I only had it, for about 8 months of my entire life. Wow. But as I was going into kind of finishing up my time in the Foreign Legion, and I really felt like I had gotten right. I was actually in the hospital dealing with an injury and had a little time on my hands sitting in the fucking hospital, man. And I decided, you know what? Now's the time to put out, in a very strategic way, and roll this message out. And so I did. I did, some military posts once a day for, a few months, and then just kind of started to roll, but always with the clear message. I did it deliberately. I wasn't posting stuff of me doing, it was all a deliberate move to get a good, clean message across. And then as it just picked up pace, then I decided it was time to do the YouTube. And once those two kind of came together, then the profile started to kind of grow, and it started to gain some traction, which I was happy to see because it means the message was resonating.
No, it's definitely a powerful message you've got as well. And obviously I'm kind of similar with the message I've got. I unfortunately don't have the physique you've got, but I'll be working on that. But to be honest, I think the message you're putting out is amazing. We've got similar backgrounds and we've been both in kind of prison, stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? So I'm going to just take you back to your history, Taylor. So obviously, what was it like growing up? Was it California? Is it California you stay, or where was it you grew up in America?
Yes, San Diego, California is what my hometown. I consider my hometown where I grew up. Born in Boston. Still family there, but raised in San Diego through all the formative years. And San Diego is an interesting place because it's a border town of Mexico, right? So a lot of people don't really think of that side of it. But the most busy and dangerous border crossing in the world is San Ysidro and San Diego, right?
Like cartels and stuff.
Imagine the drugs, the car. There's a lot of stuff that comes that's through the porous border. And so San Diego is it's a nice, beautiful city, but it has a tough side, right? It has a tough side. You can find some problems in San Diego if you want to find them, So
I can imagine.
And I was finding some of them, bro.
I know. So, obviously, growing up, is there obviously that kind of culture? I would imagine would kind of the cartel-y culture would kind of float over. Then would kind of float over the border, and obviously, it would be quite a interesting as a youth kind of thing like that, seeing the kind of cartels, how they work, and easy money and stuff like that for like people that are in poverty. So is it kind of impoverished the same way as Glasgow is? Is there areas of San Diego that are kind of impoverished?
Yeah, I mean, every big city's gonna have those, tough areas, and San Diego's no exception. I mean, they have in San Diego, there's a big gang problem. There's a big, you got every race under the sun, and a lot of people are grouped up in neighborhoods. It's a massive metropolitan city on an international border. So it has. I'm not too familiar with exactly the inner workings of Glasgow, but I know Glasgow's a tough fucking city, man. With the Glasgow smiles and all that, dude. You guys got a lot going on up there, bro. So it was, but very affluent also, right? You have some money too. And so I didn't grow up in a really poor area by any stretch, but it was, and also some of the access to money can also, what does it do? It buys drugs, and so that creates its own problem. And so that was kind of what we were running into, but we were in Mexico quite a bit, not dealing with any real cartels and those things. That's kind of a little bit separated, but just the entire culture is one of partying, kind of getting after it, having access to a lot of things is a big problem in San Diego. Just the access.
This sounds similar to the kind of problems that we see in Glasgow, and it's obviously due to kind of, I always say, Taylor, it's always due to poverty. It's always due to the kind of working class thing that will go. And I don't know how much America's go with that, but I understand that there's real poverty in America the same way as there is in Glasgow.
Oh yeah.
And as we'll go into later on, and when you go into the prison system, I would imagine the American prison system would be pretty similar to the Scottish prison system in the way that you don't get many people from affluent areas in prison. It'll probably be a lot of people from the impoverished areas. So I'm going to just take you to, obviously, your childhood, right? Obviously, you've grew up, stuff like that, through kind of a wee bit hard time stuff. So how did you end up in the military, Taylor? How did that come about?
I grew up on a Marine base. So my father was a Marine, but very young I was. He was in and out. He wasn't a career guy. So possibly I was exposed to it a little bit and it was opened my eyes, but really it was not pushed on me. My father was not all about the military by any stretch. And I wasn't but I do come from some stock, some breeding. My mom's dad, my grandfather, was a captain in the United States Navy, Naval Academy. So kind of the family supportive of the military, right wing, politically. And I saw some commandos, kind of familiar with your SBS guys, the Navy SEALs training in the Bay. And I was very young, 7 years old. And that opened my eyes to, this commando world's a thing. So Vietnam SEALs, Green Berets, that stuff was really interesting to me. And, kids play war in the forest. I was playing for real, man. I knew it was what I wanted to do. Not in a romantic way. I didn't have any dreams of being a fucking Rambo. It wasn't like that. I was fascinated with the man behind the gun. Like, who is that guy that's creeping around the jungle? Right? And so that I identified with that. I kind of, I thought I was that, and, ignorant to it all, obviously. I had no experience. I just was what I thought it might be. And so I put it in my head, and that just was a seed that grew, and it got sidetracked with drugs and alcohol and women, all that stuff, sidetracked. Sports also, positive things too, but I was like, I'll do it later. And so that's kind of how I was exposed to it. I really exposed it to myself. I just researched it, and no one pushed it on me. It was just something was a calling. That's what I felt like it was.
So, see myself, obviously the views I've got views about I've got so many friends that are soldiers. And I really respect the way a soldier goes about his life. I really respect the way, the discipline, the dedication. I don't agree with war necessarily, Taylor. I don't agree with some of the stuff that we do as a West, as a West. I don't know obviously in America there's a lot of patriotism and stuff like that in America. I understand that. How was your feeling when you were actually in the army and you were like obviously in kind of, how many tours did you do? Did you do a couple of tours?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've done, 2 full deployments, one to Yemen, one to Iraq. And then I did 2 in the French Foreign Legion later, into different locations, South America and then Eastern Europe on the Russian border. So I've kind of had a spread in multiple countries, serving in multiple countries, which gives me a unique angle on even the political side, right? Which is something that a lot of people don't really ask me about, but is actually an interesting perspective because I got to see it from the French side also, right? Even how they view America, right? So I got to see some 2-angled thing, and you're actually the first guy or podcast I've actually who's actually kind of opened that question up, so I appreciate that. And war is such a sensitive topic, right? Because it's never the aim. And one thing I always say, people are like, give violence a chance. You see those fucking dumbass shirts, man. I always say, man, that's a guy who's never experienced real violence. I mean, you've been in prison. Anybody who's been around real violence on the streets or anywhere, man, you're like, you want to stay as far away from it as possible, right?
Yes.
And that's not that's not a long-term goal for anybody. It shouldn't be, because it's not going to last long if that's how you want to live your life. So, and I kind of open that up to answer your question directly is, while I was in, there's some frustrations for sure, right? But I always thought it was my fucking duty just to not think politically, right? I mean, but to maintain my moral standards no matter what, right? So that's why I sleep like a fucking baby, man, because I never broke my moral standards anywhere I've ever went. Nor did anybody around me, ever. I never saw anything unprofessional. I never saw anything that would cause me to lose sleep or not have peace. Dead serious. So, yes, there's collateral damage. Yes, there's things that happen with bombs coming from planes and stuff, but nothing that we were directly correlated with or had responsibility for. And so I have a mixed feeling of war, right? It's unfortunate, but a lot of times necessary to get some shit done, right? So it's an unfortunate reality in our human tale, right? And possibly in the future it doesn't exist anymore, right? I don't know. But but it's proven itself to be, just to this point in time, to be just a rule of thumb. And so I saw it as my calling to do this duty for my country, and that's just kind of how I looked at it. I didn't overthink it.
No, I think that's a good way to look at it. I think the way I always see it is like, I've got my own views, Taylor, right? And it's obviously different. We're not going to go into that because it's like I've got my views on what's happening in Palestine and stuff like that just now. I don't even think that you can call that a war. Do you know what I mean? I think and different when it's Iraq and stuff like that, things needed to happen. There is different things. Obviously, the different things when you think about war as a tool, it's obviously sorted a lot of problems, and it has been the way humans have basically, over all the years, over every single kind of generation there's ever been, has been the tool that, as you say, the rule of thumb. It's been how it is. So I'm just interested to see, as a kind of soldier who's like really doing well, gets such a great positive thinking and such a positive message. How do you manage that? When I've seen other soldiers that, like myself, like for prison, I see some of my friends in prison that just cannot move on. They're like, it's beat them. And I think what you're saying about the violence and stuff, nobody wants to be in that, really. It's brought on you for whatever reason, right? Whatever reason it's brought on. But nobody really wants to be in that. And we talk about that on this podcast quite a lot. So it's just to kind of see what you would kind of say to somebody, like if there was a soldier watching this that's maybe really depressed and maybe can't get out of that mindset, how would you kind of say you done that? How have you managed? Because it's really inspirational, Taylor, to be honest. The way that you've come out the army and the message that you've got, it's actually very inspirational, mate. And I take my hat off to you. So it's just, how would you tell somebody else that was maybe struggling, this is what I done?
First thing you have to do is get right. Right? We see a lot on the news and society with people look up and out. They look up and out to attach themselves to problems that they seek to fix. Right? Mm-hmm. Protesters, when they're not right themselves first.
Yes.
So the first thing I said, that if you're trying to think about all this stuff going on in the world and wars, and let's be quite honest, we both know that there's controlling powers, money, and there's so much complication that muddles the water. It's so, who the knows what's going on, really, right? That's the bloody truth. True. And so and I'm not saying that's not fixable either. All I'm saying is you're never going to be able to fix it if you can't even fix yourself first.
Yes.
So that's the reality I came to, that the Foreign Legion allowed me, right, with the time to actually sit and think quietly with not a lot of inputs from noise and normal civilian society. And, and obviously getting off drugs and those heavy things that are just selfish endeavors that will cloud your vision and your clarity. So once I would say to that guy, if he's having a fucking problem and can't get right, is to stop, look, listen, take a knee. We call it that SILS. Slow the fuck down. Go, what can I affect change in me today? Well, and this may sound so rudimentary, simple to people, but this is kind of how I show people. We strip it down to the absolute basics. Are you getting up on the same time every fucking day early? Most of the time, people aren't. I go, well, start there, right? Start there. Do it early as shit, too. Not 6. I'm talking 4, right? And maybe even earlier, like painfully early. Why? Because it's a sign of gratitude. You're only getting up to forego pleasure for purpose, just to be a better person. Give yourself some time to get yourself time to think. Stretch a little bit. Get into some quiet thought. No phone, no stuff puking all over you immediately, sucking your soul out. Reflect. Allow yourself to get centered, right? And I won't go too into it now, but that's where I start. I say start with the basics. Get control of the things you can get control over, all in your life. Clear out the clutter mentally and physically in your life. And then what? And then move on to the next bigger thing. And then the next bigger thing. And then once all those things are solid, okay, now you can start affecting change in your community and possibly your country. That's what I think the order of operations should be. And also, in terms of just inner peace, that's how it has to be, man. Or else you're just a phony out there trying to fix the world, and you're not fixed yourself, and your house is in shambles, and you're trying to arrange everything in society. It doesn't make sense. So that's what I would tell to somebody is slow down and start making the changes and controlling the things you can for the positive.
No, I think that's a powerful message, Taylor, and I appreciate that. It's a lot of the time we've got in Scotland we've got a massive addiction problem, and I know you've been through that yourself. I've had addiction problems. That comes with the territory when you come to prison and stuff like that. That's always obviously when you've got you get guys out here, and I've dealt with a few soldiers. I've seen a few soldiers, and you're so right in what you're saying. You can't attach yourself to exterior and try and get exterior validation when you're no validating yourself. And trying to validate yourself is very hard. I'm not saying it's an overnight process, and what you're saying is like you need to start somewhere, start here, and it is just taking back and stripping back yourself and looking do I have an ego? Do I have, as you say, like damage inside that you need to face on? There's nothing that you can change. So I'm going to just skip to like taking you into your kind of prison years, because it'd be interesting to talk about the prison for my basis, for like a Scottish prison, and talking to somebody who experienced the American prison. How long did you do, Taylor, all in?
So there's a little distinction, and I don't know how it works in the Scottish system. We have our prisons and we have our jails, right? So we have kind of the long terms, which you might be considering like we have in prisons. I've been to jail, so I've been 3 months here, 6 months there, months here. So I've done stints over time, nothing longer than 4 months at a time, right? So that's kind of, but I've just done multiple little chunks here and there, but you're mixed in there with felons and mixed bags of people waiting trials or serving up to year sentences on violent crimes or felonies, or waiting to go to federal prison or state prisons. So we kind of have it kind of a mixed bag, is just to kind of make the distinction for people. But but ours are broken up racially, right? No matter where you're at. So when I was up in Bay Area, kind of in San Francisco area, it's a lockdown facility. So there's no yard time. You're not going outside. You're locked down 23, so that was difficult. No sunlight and stuff for months and months. And you're broken down racially. That's how it works in the United States. So whites are with whites, blacks are with blacks, Southern Mexicans are with Southern Mexicans, Northern Mexicans are with Northern Mexicans. And it's strict. That doesn't change. And the importance is a program, right? You get on a program that is conducive to keeping your mental positivity intact. And that's something that I think is probably international. It's probably something that guys, you get on your routine. Isn't it interesting how even in those constrained environments, what do guys resort to? Habits, routines, right?
Even bad ones.
Even bad ones, right? It's whatever keeps them in that comfort zone or something. So if you can make your comfort zone something positive, right? That is that, and those are the guys that do well, and come out better. But you're right. There's drugs are a problem. Violence is is an issue, and I'm sure it's the same that you've experienced, brother.
No, well, obviously, like, I done 15 years in prison, so I done like if I was 19 years of age, I was 35, so I done most of my adult life in prison. So when I see prison, right, I just actually wrote a book. It's called Authenticity and Chaos, and I'm basically trying to say that what we are talking about today and stuff like that, and the positive message is near impossible to put into a prison system. And I've spoke to like the Compassionate Prison Project in America, and Fritzy, she's dead positive, and I love her to bits. She's great. But I do struggle to see how you're able to get guys to get this positive message. And maybe you can enlighten us, Taylor, and say something that I miss. But I just see prison as a kind of lost place where anybody that I ever seen changing was always due to like spiritual. They maybe found God, or they just genuinely had enough of the life. But I never ever seen the prison system changing anybody. It was always somebody that changed themselves. So when I done it was like I done 15 years, so I seen like as you say, addiction, violence. You see it all, and you become really desensitized to a lot of stuff. And I think that's a big problem for guys coming out. If guys come out of prison and they're desensitized, you don't feel part of the society, if that makes sense. And I don't know if you found that even similar with the smaller sentences. When you come out, it takes that wee bit of time to reintegrate, just because of what you've experienced in prison. So obviously we're talking about the gangs and stuff like that. We don't really have that here in Scotland. I mean, we do. There is factions and stuff like that when you go to certain prisons and whatever. People know people, but I don't. How would you like? It would be like, how would you bring out that positive message into prison, Taylor? I mean, it's a very hard question I'm asking you, but how would you kind of bring something that would enable the prisoner to take control of themselves and have that positive message that you give and that I try and put out as well?
I have a follow-up question after I answer this question because I'm curious about when you got out and kind of your mindset. And so that's why I think it will help. But you have to plant the seed of self-worth into somebody. Because the root of all these issues, self-sabotage, danger, criminal activities, all these things are rooted in a lack of self-worth. Right.
Yes.
And even me, I experienced that of it's revolving self-sabotage, reaching externally, guys reaching for drugs, guys are reaching for power with money, and it's all kind of usually related to drugs and vices. And what happens though? Well, we all fucking regret it. We all feel shame, right? And we all feel shame, and we all feel those negative emotions when we're doing those negative acts. It's not rocket science. It's universal laws and principles.
Definitely.
It's also a little bit of education. So
yes,
teaching people these universal laws. Like, let's take the actual formal religion out of it, though I do agree it's very positive for, there's so much positive act, but what those formal religions are teaching you is a belief in something greater than yourself, at least a greater understanding in that your actions matter. So but if the issue with formal religion is, and I'm not against it at all, I'm just saying why I see people have issues with it, I should say, is they go, well, I'm not with that formal religion, so I'm just not gonna, well, you got to teach them these universal principles that if they believe in religion or not, these things are true, right? Law of attraction, law of vibration, law of these things are, and and you point to their life. You say, hey man, look, when you've been doing this bad shit, look where you're at. Like, it's just, and look what everyone else is around. Is everybody here happy? Right? No. So obviously we have to start doing something different. Why don't you just give this a try? Now we have to shift to the habits, right? Because the self-worth comes from the work, comes from that daily work. And that's something that I had to learn was, man, I didn't start to feel good about myself until I was doing shit that was good for me. And stopped doing things that I regretted and caused me shame and ripped my life apart. And I said, if I really love myself, I'm going to not go, partying at the strip club all night, doing drugs, and then driving home, just causing myself massive problems because you're just exposing yourself to risk. You know what? How about I get a little rest, chill, and get up early tomorrow, and then work on something that's going to actually benefit me, right? It's a better decision, right? Not necessarily the most fun, but it's teaching yourself that your self-worth is that worth for tomorrow, that worth for now and tomorrow, not this immediate pleasurable moment. And it's also being like, hey man, putting a little responsibility of them and say, hey dude, if you got anybody in your life, even if it's just yourself, bro, don't you want to be the fucking man that people rely on? That people go, you know what, that dude's solid, man. Not the fucking guy that needs to ask for money and is bailing out of jail. No, like, that's not desirable. Everybody knows that's not desirable. Don't you want to have money and be successful and have people go, wow, that guy knows what's up. And it's unlearning a lot, I would say.
No, I honestly couldn't agree with you more. My belief is that society conditions us in a certain way so that, especially the working class and the impoverished, I think we get conditioned in a certain way to believe a certain set of rules that aren't true. And see if somebody finds solace and finds themselves in a traditional religion, I'm all for it. Like, go for it, man. But all they are doing is actually, when you look at the scriptures, when you look at all the kind of religious scriptures, it is basically the law of attraction, the law of vibration. It's just in words. And if you can unpack it, it's actually the same message that Jesus and Buddha and these people were all telling us. It is just the same. But for society's been really clever over the years in being able to trick us into wanting these exterior validation and wanting. So to go back to like what you were saying, I've been out for 3 years now, Taylor. So I was also in prison for sort of a crime I didn't commit. So that's another big thing that I've had a lot of acceptance that I've had to do. I've had to accept a lot of stuff that's been really hard to accept. I've had to forgive a lot of people that don't necessarily deserve my forgiveness.
Yeah.
But it's all for me. I've had to deal with a lot of people and just and see that the reality of people are going to hate on you because you were in prison for a long time for a crime. You were in crime for murder, so you're always going to be that person, even though you're putting out a positive message. And I always try and put a positive message out, Taylor. This is why I love getting guys like you on. And it's just trying to I think the awareness level's so low in prison. People's consciousness levels are so low, and I don't think the message is very hard to pass on in an environment that's volatile like that. I'd love to. I think you're better catching people on the way out when people are just maybe getting released. I think that could be something that I don't know if you've ever heard the is it Homeboy? Have you heard the Homeboy before? I think I mean I don't know how much how much charity work, but I think you'd be an absolute asset for the guys if for guys coming out of prison and actually being able to hear your story. But anyway, that's a totally different thing. But I was actually going to ask you, just because I totally believe in the law of attraction. I believe in the kind of the law of vibration, all these kind of same things that you do. I'm maybe not at the stage you're at. Like you're probably further on than me. In the way that I've only really at the acceptance stage and the forgiveness stage. I've probably still got a lot of self-esteem that I need to build back up. I can come across as confident, stuff like that, but obviously I need to build on that. But I'm always trying to pick away at people that have been in prison, and maybe they can find that magical wand that's able to. How do you raise an awareness or a vibration in a place that's got such a low awareness, consciousness, and vibration level? And that's including the staff. The staff are included in that, Taylor.
Yeah.
So I don't know. How would you? It's just a different beast. Prison's a different beast. It really is.
I have a question, follow-on question for you about your path, because you said something very interesting about level of consciousness.
Right.
When you go in at 19, right? Out at 35. We're the same exact age, by the way, which is interesting. I think, were you born in 85?
You 85, you look about 10 years younger than me.
Oh, no. I'm 85 also, brother. Look at these gray hairs. You just can't see. Man, yeah, 85 babies crushing it, man. But you went in at 19, right? And you come out at 35, a grown man, right? As your stages of consciousness must have exploded, at some point to be able to get out. And I'm curious to know through the phases how that developed and who you were when you went in and who you were walking out and with what mindset you had.
It's actually, I don't even think MD's ever asked me that. Well, obviously at 19, I'm a stupid young boy that thinks he knows everything. By the time I was maybe 23, 24, I was really desensitized to a horrible, toxic environment. you'd become consumed by the prison system at that stage. I
Mm.
was really lucky to have a family, a really good support network, and a partner who stood by me. I was very, very lucky to have that, Taylor.
Mm.
And I think that's why I was able to kind of get through it, because most guys that do the amount of time I've done aren't able to kind of function the way I do. I understand that. I can see it. Like when I work with guys, I understand that a lot of people, and then you get a lot of people that go further than me, that are doing better than me, Taylor. Do you know what I mean? But the 95% of the people are lost, addicted to drugs, really, really badly traumatized, probably a lot of childhood ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, very low consciousness level. So I read a book called The Celestine Prophecy. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
No.
It was so the book was all about energy and stuff like that. And I met a really interesting guy who was in there, a lifer, who taught me. And I used to think he talked a one lot of rubbish. I used to think this guy talks so, but I used to love listening to him because he was so knowledgeable. He used to tell me about the law of vibration, the law of attraction. He would tell me this, he would tell me that. So I read this book, and I got a feeling over me that I've never had before. It was like I felt good. So I then moved on to the chimp paradox, which set me up for kind of a good way. But I was definitely the odd one out in prison, so I'd probably didn't speak a lot about it because it was like, wasn't it the in thing in prison to be talking about like my spiritual consciousness levels and like, you know what I mean? Like people would be like, shut up and fucking get a joint out. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, really wasn't like that. So I think probably it wasn't I started getting home leaves and stuff, which over here, Taylor, is like when you're day is a long sentence we had, you start training for freedom. So you do the last 4 years, you start kind of going out and doing home leaves and stuff. And I got to a very, very high level of consciousness at one point in my life. I've actually lost it again. But at one point I was flying. I could feel it. I was on the right level. I was on a good level. And it was basically just journaling, going to the gym, visualization, putting stuff into practice, and everything was falling into place for me. And I've just kind of fell away from it. I'm going to get I'm getting back into it this year, definitely. I'm promising myself that I'm going to get back into it, and I will get back into it this year. But it's an interesting question because I don't really know when my consciousness levels changed. They probably bounced all over the place a wee bit, Taylor, for a while. But I've always wanted to, I'd love to get into the prison system and try and raise the awareness levels. I just don't know. I just don't have the tools for it. I don't know how to do it. Like, and I don't think MD can. I think the prison system needs to change itself. And it seems steady. Like, I don't know how it is in America, but like, seems steady sending a guy to the shed. He's going to just sit there, maybe take some drugs, chill out on a chair all day. Like, why don't you do mandatory classes, mandatory mindfulness classes, mandatory yoga, mandatory, do you know what I mean? Like stuff that for an hour a day, and give people that wee chance that they could maybe get that level of awareness and get that wee. But anyway, that's a way off. But no, it's a really good question you asked me, and it's really interesting because obviously I've got a part I was going to talk about the law of attraction, but I think we've covered that. So I'm going to take you to obviously like what an amazing thing that you're the only person in the world that's been a US Navy SEAL and a French Foreign Legion. Is that right?
Yeah, there's might have been some rumors of some old Vietnam cat that may have, but I don't have it verified. But as far as verifiable, yes.
And what would you say is the big difference between those, Taylor? Was there a big difference between the two of them?
Apples and oranges, man. Apples and oranges. Well, first off, Navy SEALs is a special force organization, community, and the French Foreign Legion is highly trained infantry soldiers, right? So it's a different philosophical approach that you're in, different organization. The climate is different as far as discipline, right? The Foreign Legion's much more disciplined, much more formal, much more strict, and the level of autonomy is very minimal because of history, right? I understand you got guys coming from all over, checkered backgrounds, and speaking different languages. You got to put a heavy thumb on them to get them going in the same direction,
Aye.
right? And they do, right? And so, and the level of autonomy in the SEAL teams was very high. And your freedom of movement is, you're living a kind of a normal life. After you get through SEAL selection, you're living in town in an apartment and your car, and you're not living on base. So it couldn't be two opposite things. It's for sure was different, and the difference was different, made it very challenging, psychologically and emotionally.
So, you must have seen a lot of things, obviously, like in both kind of obviously with the French Foreign Legion and the Navy SEALs. But what was the kind of best moments that you had maybe in the SEALs? What was the kind of moments that you remember most in the SEALs, and then maybe some of the moments that you probably wouldn't rather have been seen? Like obviously, I know there's tragedies happening and things like that, Taylor. So what was some of the stories that you would find in the SEALs? Because I know they are like kind of elite force.
You have poignant moments in the SEAL teams, for sure, where you have the ability to step back and kind of realize what you're doing. At night with your legs hanging out of a helicopter on night vision, just holding on to the door's open, no seatbelts, you have those, and it's quiet. You just have your communications on and quiet chatter. You have those moments where it just makes you reflect on tops of mountains in the winter, bottoms of oceans, diving at night, right? Cool moments. Aye. And also with your boys, with your homies. So, and you make a really tight bond. Even in training, you have those moments where you're like, hey, man, I can't believe we're fucking out here doing this, man. Swimming in the ocean at night, with sharks around, man. You have those cool moments where you really realize that you're on this path, and especially if you think and you're on that in your destiny, which is what I felt and knew. That made it cool. And then obviously you have your bad moments, right? As time progresses, as with life, it starts simple and gets complicated. And so, you're in training as a young kid and kind of going through, and everything's kind of, and then, real shit happens. Your friends start dying. You start deploying. Legal things start happening, right? On the field and off the field. And you see tragedies, right? You see some bad, the dark side of this machine that is. And so those are some of and also mistakes that you make on the field too.
I know.
Right. And so that means, and so some of the things that I actually still kind of harbor are like mistakes I've made, not morally, but, judgment wise, that I was just not in my best space and wasn't the best teammate. Things could have went bad and I was off my game, that type of shit. And so that's the stuff that I still hold. And so look, it's powerful, right? That's the thing, is I would say, is it's powerful. If it's anything, it's got, there's very little right in the middle that's just kind of meh. There's very little like that, right? Which is that's what I love about it.
We talk a lot about, because we've had guys on here, but like that have been in prison and gangs, whatever. You know what I mean? We've had guys on here, but we talk about tribalism, right? And we talk about the kind of need for connection, and that must be massive when you're in a unit like that. That tribalism and the vibration that you must get off each other must be kind of on a different level, I would imagine. On both negative and positive moments, do you know what I mean? Like, obviously, so just obviously, how do you make a connection when you're like, you maybe know you're going into such a volatile area? Do you know you've got each other's backs? Is that like, because obviously you watch the films and stuff and you see the guys and it looks amazing the way they've all, is that kind of with real life? Like, you all have your back, and it's like, well, brothers kind of thing, like that tribalism.
Man, the tribalism for men is rooted deep biologically. It's
Definitely.
what we seek, and that's why guys like you and me, we're making our own tribes here now, right? It doesn't have to be necessarily in an organization. You can be it can be a way of thinking too, and an approach to life, which is what kind of my push is now. And yes, in the SEAL teams, especially in your platoons, you have SEAL teams, and then your platoons, 16 guys. Man, you're with those guys for years. Same group, same core group. You are with them more than your family, way more, right?
Aye.
You're traveling, not to count deployed, but even training, you're gone all the time and with each other for the most part. You party together, you go to the bars together, you get in fights together, you train together, you see everybody at their worst and best. That's and shared hardship too, which is why gangs exist. They're in the same neighborhoods. They understand that same shared hardship of life, and then they go through their own stuff. And also rites of passage. Rites of passage is actually what's lost, and I think a huge issue in our society is men need rites of passage to get in those tribes or whatever, and we don't have it now. There's no outlet for it. That's so people create it. Gangs do jumping in. You do all these things that are negative, but they're just substitutes for passage. Rites of passage. Tribalism is rooted deep, and so you get it deep, and yeah, it is like that. You are with your boys, and I'm still tight with all everybody I've been in platoons with, and we're always have that bond, and it's definitely like that. You know each other so well, you might not even like the guy, but know he'll die for you.
But you love it.
It's a weird kind of blend, and that's just how it is. It's assumed, and it's real for sure.
Well, that's kind of exactly where I was going to. I was hoping it was going to go that way, Taylor, because I was hoping that was going to be the answer, because I was going to kind of bring it back to the kind of prison thing and just saying that it must be very similar. Just people trying to make connections with anything, and obviously you guys are obviously a lot that's different, and there is differences, but in prison it must be hard. Like when you see a guy that's maybe. Because obviously, I think that you've probably on a different level of consciousness for some of the guys that maybe were in your unit. I think you've got quite a unique perspective, a unique view on the world. So how is it dealing with guys that maybe you could see were carrying like trauma, and you could see were hurting? How is that? Because obviously that was hard for me when I was in prison, and I could see guys harboring a lot of kind of childhood trauma or whatever, and you couldn't help but you wanted to make that connection. And I'm trying to kind of make it so that it's kind of similar. I think you know what the route I'm going, what I'm talking about. Yeah. So how is it dealing with people that were maybe feeling a bit of depression and didn't have that kind of mindset you had?
Yeah, you brought up a good point, and it related even to something you said prior. How do we change people's levels of consciousness? How do you get into somebody's heart to affect change? Because you change from the inside out. You grow from the inside out. So you can't tell anybody anything. You kind of have to show them where to look to find it themselves.
Definitely.
And also I have to be 100%. My level of consciousness, if I can reflect back and be honest, was low in the SEAL teams. Not low. I think I had the ability, but I didn't have the tools. And I also didn't have experience the loss yet, right? I was kind of still riding on my ego and kind of living that life, fast paced, not taking time to reflect because I didn't have to. I was experiencing these successes after I had kind of already messed up and come out of jail and brought myself out of it. And now I'm back on it. And when I crashed and burned again is when everything got stripped and I had to take a look at myself. that's when my level of consciousness kind of started to raise. When I had to figure out why I kept doing these things to myself and ruining my life. And that took years to kind of figure out, and also reading Stoic philosophy and, like you said, seeking it yourself. But how do you get into somebody's heart and, if they're dealing with something and kind of affect change in them? Well, first of all, I would ask them, and this goes to what you were saying before, how do you talk to guys in prison? It's because we all suffer the same. It doesn't matter if you're a Navy SEAL or in prison.
That's what I mean.
That's the beautiful thing is, guess what? The answers are the same. Or you ask them, what do you want? What do you want? A lot of times people don't know, right? If you ask them a direct question, what do you want? They'll be like,
most of the time people don't know.
Yeah, they'll be like, well, figure out what you want and then let's talk. Because you go, do you want this life? Do you want to feel like this? They go, no. Well, I go, okay. Well,
I don't know if you agree with this, Taylor. Sorry for butting in, but I don't know if you agree with this. I think people can become comfortable in that traumatic and kind of victim mentality. People become comfortable. So see what you're saying is would you want? Probably some guys would go, I just want left alone, just to live in this traumatic kind of consciousness that's not going anywhere.
Well, I would say I disagree, because I think people are comfortable with it just because they haven't really thought about it yet. I say you put it on them. You go, man, you shine a light on it. They're just used to it because it's reality, and they think it's reality. You go, where you're feeling and how you're living right now, is this what you want? And most of the time it's no, right? Most of the time it was a very rare human being that will be like, man, I'm crushing it, right? It's a rare person that's like that, and the person that's like that, it's important to ask them what they're doing, right? Is you go, what do you want? And they go, well, no, I want something. So guess what? If you want something to change, you have to change. So you can't keep doing the same shit. So guess what? Let's start somewhere. Like, if you don't ever have to feel like this ever again, but we need to start doing some shit differently. Are you willing to do something? If not, then own it. Okay, you're not willing to do anything differently, then suck it up, buttercup, because you're going to just enjoy feeling like this. Get comfortable with it then, and now really get comfortable with it. Not just because, I'm comfortable with it because I'm not aware of it. Now you're aware of it, and now you're making a choice to feel like that, right? Empower people. Totally. I like to empower people with, man, you're feeling like this because you're choosing to. Not just because things are happening to you. You're choosing to do this to yourself. So fucking enjoy it, right? And be a man about it at least. I agree with you.
Definitely. I think this is where I get tripped up, right? This is where I trip up, Taylor, right? Because I agree with absolutely everything you're saying, and it's such a good message. It's such I mean, I love watching your videos on Instagram. You're very inspirational. But see, when I go to like speak to any like friends that are in prison or anything, they just don't want to hear that kind of positive message at that moment, because they're in a place where the vibration level's so low. And this is where my gripe with the prison system comes from, because our prison system's logo, right, is Scottish prison system transforming lives for the better, right? And
is it really? That's their slogan?
Swear to God. Look it up, honestly. Right?
Man.
Now, the guys are coming out with massive addiction problems, have got no homes, they're homeless. Now, how do you tell that person, right, let's go, this person doesn't have a clue where he is, doesn't know who he is, he's got no identity, there's absolutely nothing he's got no friends, no family, and then you demonize him again when he commits another crime. And you're like, look, man, you need to either own your prison system, take away that logo, and just say, we are maintaining the Scottish criminals for society, and that's it. We're not doing anything else. Own it, or bring in people like yourself, like other people who would be willing to help and maybe go in with that positive message and shine a light, as you say, on some people who would be open to it. There's a lot of people that wouldn't be. There's a lot of, yourself in prison. People are comfortable in their gangs. People are comfortable in what they're doing. But there are people there that want to change, but they can't because the environment doesn't allow them to. And I think it's what you were saying about when you were in the Navy SEALs, your vibration level was low. I totally get what you mean by that. You don't see it at the time, but looking back and reflecting on it, your consciousness level is nowhere near where it was as the now. And it's because your environment wouldn't allow that. I don't think you would have.
Yeah, that's a well put. That's well said.
I don't think you would have any soldier or any prisoner that's able to think the way that you're thinking the now, and maybe the odd one or two, right? But most people are lost, and that's why they're in these positions. And it's I'm not saying soldiers are lost. I'm not saying like prisoners are lost. I don't mean it that way. But they're certainly not on track for their self-love, self-respect, self-esteem, all that kind of stuff that's needed for what we're talking about. And I think it's amazing talking to you because it just resonates right through. So we're in different parts of the world. We've got similar belief systems. But how we also struggle to go, how do you take that to people who aren't ready to do it, aren't ready to hear it?
Man, that's such a difficult approach, because I hear the dilemma you're saying, because let's be honest, there's a percentage of the population that just will refuse to hear it, right? No matter how loud and clear you say it, they need to go down this path, and they're going to do it, and they're committed, right? They're committed. I don't say they're hopeless, but I say that's for a larger power, right? That needs to. But some of us, I like to consider conduits, right? We're conduits of information. And that same message you're talking about, which is fascinating, isn't that funny? The same message has been being said and understood for centuries.
I know.
Millennium. It's the same higher consciousness speaking to all of us. That's why we can all hear it. And it's all the same message, just being repackaged and delivered differently to different societies, to different places. So some of us are conduits and can tap into it a little clearer for whatever reason. Life has splayed it out for us to give us the ability to change. Now, how do you kind of not force that change, but push it in the right direction, right? That's the question we're asking here. Because I actually think that's the most important question that we're discussing, is how do we effectively do that? And like I said, you get in there and it's not immediate. It's not immediate. It's difficult to get healthy in this setting that you got sick in, right? And so that, in prison, that's difficult. It takes a rare individual to rise out of prison better. That's the truth. That's the truth.
No, 100%.
But what is it? What is it that about that person that makes them rise above, right? It's they've empowered themselves in some way. And so I'm not saying I have the answer, but I'm saying let's pick the individual that gets out of prison and is better, right? That person has generally empowered themselves in some way. That person has understood a larger power than themselves, whether it be religion, whether it be universal principles or whatever. They know that there's bigger things than them. They've self-actualized, which means they've taken time to become more conscious. And now generally those people try to help other people. They like to transcend self. So there's like a four things, and a fifth one, that person has made a decision. They've made a decision at some point that they don't, like you said, they're just tired of the life, or they made a decision. They made a decision at some point that they're going to change. Those are the things you give to people, and you say, look, these are the characteristics of somebody that does better leaving here. Now this is the part where you empower yourself and you make the decision. You have this information. You can do it, but don't complain when you're back in here and complain about the system, complain about this, because it's possible to get out of this system. Hard. It's also being realistic. It's hard. It's not going to be easy. So let's give them the information. Also, they need more information, right? You have to be giving them books on universal principles, Stoic philosophies, reading things, at least giving them access to these things if they don't already, or the time to actually. It's a tough situation with that low vibrational state to change, but you just have to give people the information and the choice.
No, your message is resonating, and it's so true. The problem I find, Taylor, right, is a lot of the guys can't read. A lot of guys have got learning difficulties in prison. A lot of guys have got bad head injuries and stuff like that, and maybe can't think the right way. I don't know how it is in America, but I was in prison for 15 years, and I can't think of anybody that I met that was evil, like as in an evil person. That a lot of guys made bad choices. But there was so many great guys in prison. But
some of the best, ironically.
Some definitely, and some of the best guys I know, but that I met were in prison. And the thing is that they look up to some people look up to the wrong people, right? They look at things and they think that that's the grass is always greener, and the grass is always greener on that side because the bullshit's fertilizer. That's why the bullshit's the fertilizer on the other side. That's why it's greener. But it's not. You need to fix yourself, and I think when you get addicted to exterior validation, which prisoners can do, whether it be drugs, and listen, I understand it. It's like that's the hard thing about it is I actually understand why in that volatile, toxic, horrible environment you would choose to dull that out. I understand that. I understand it, but it's like you say, you need to take responsibility for it. But when you go into prison, and if you say to guys, you know yourself, you go in to say, listen, guys, the first thing you say is, listen, all you need to take responsibility. You're going to get everybody going, fuck off. Like, who do you think you are? Because that's when you try and better yourself, or you try and break the narrative, or you come out, for a better word, right? You come out the matrix and you move out of that kind of systematic way that we're taught to live. You do isolate yourself with old peers, which is a good thing. It's a good thing and a bad thing, because you miss them, but they're not ready to come on that journey with you. So it's hard, but no, absolutely, honestly, love speaking to you about that, Taylor. So I'm going to just move on right to some of like your own motivational stuff, because I think you're a fascinating character. I really do. I watch your stuff quite a lot on Instagram, and I think that you'll blow up. I think you're going to go good places. I think you're on the right path. I think your press-ups that you do are too hard. You'll need to try and do easier ones for me. But just to even, like, where did that kind of motivation, where did that come from, Taylor? With you, was that the army that's kind of put that in you? Was that army background, or was it just the way you've always been?
No, it actually wasn't. A lot of guys in the military aren't that motivated, and I'm not dogging on them. It's just, and I wasn't. I always, though, knew this. In periods of my life where I woke up early and worked out, I was happier. So when I've gotten off that and my life has gone off the rails, and things, and I just started to think back, man, when was I the most, I hate this word happy, but when was I the most happy? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I went, you know what? I was getting up early and I was working out. Mm-hmm. And so I just started doing that. It really just rooted itself that I just needed to feel better, man. I was just not happy. And I was like, okay, so I started doing that, right? And then I started, listening to some music and self-reflecting. And then getting up earlier and then getting up earlier to give myself a little more time. And then all of a sudden I liked getting up before people in the military so I could shit, shower, shave before everybody was up. So I wasn't rushing around, right? It was like simple, started out of like need and then it just kind of grew into this system that I built. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start doing this every day because when I do it, I'm like, see, I don't say I'm an addict. I'm habitual. I can get rid of something. Yeah, I can get rid of something, but like with drugs, if it works one day, I'm going to do it every fucking day, 7 days a week, no matter what, right? I don't miss. So when those things, you can't do that and live a good life. When I started substituting that habitual kind of nature with positive things, my life started to get better. I started to get more clear. And then people ask me about discipline now. And I go, I'm not disciplined at all. People are like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? You're up at 2, 3 in the morning doing push-ups, man. That's crazy discipline. I go, dude, I've passed discipline. I've crossed the bridge, man. Do you need discipline to brush your teeth or fucking eat? No.
I know.
You just do it because you fucking need to. That's where I'm at. It's harder. It would be harder for me to stay in bed and not do it. Dead serious. It would be more painful to stay in bed and not. I would need discipline to stay in bed, to be quite honest. And so that's kind of where it's gotten, man.
It's it's an amazing journey you've been on, and it's amazing to see that. I love to see guys who are in your position, right? And obviously you're kind of flying at the moment, Taylor, right? You're doing really well for yourself. But I mean, you're vulnerable. You get vulnerable. You're willing to talk about the dark times. You're willing to talk about the hard times that you had. And I think a lot of people, this is where they miss that, because you need to get vulnerable with yourself first before you can start healing. And by the way, I've got so many demons, Taylor. I'm nowhere near like where I would like to be. I've got a lot of work to do, but you need to stop being comfortable in that victim mentality and move out of that victim mentality. I work with guys who I would say are probably the most disenfranchised, right? I worked with them for a wee while. The most disenfranchised group of people, miscarriage of justice victims, right? So guys who have done 20 years in prison for a crime they never committed. Right, so guys that were in the IRA, right? Guys that were in the IRA who got 20 years for blown up, like post offices and whatever pubs, and it wasn't them.
Yeah.
So these guys are so full of hatred. They're so consumed by what the legal system done to them. So when we started talking, me and my pal Scott, who worked with the miscarriage of justice, great guy, absolutely brilliant, brilliant kind of work ethic. We started talking about trying to maybe get the guys to speak about acceptance, and it was like a bad word. It was like a swear word that you'd said. People were like, "What the fuck do you mean accepting? How can you accept it?" And I says, "For you, you need to accept it for you. Like it's not for anybody else. Like the system don't care that you." We're in jail for 20 years. They're not going to... and then it's not even that. It's like you'll get guys who done 20 years, they win their appeal, so they get their conviction quashed, and then they're still the same, but they want an apology. And do you know, it was such an amazing thing. Like I watched... There was a group of like 6, 7 miscarriage of justice victims, and we all kind of went and started this wee kind of group. And it was amazing to watch these guys changing. Some guys had been rooted in like 40 years of hatred, consumed by what had happened to them, and just flourishing, just seeing just seeing the wee light switch and going, they're getting it. They're getting it. They need to take a wee bit of responsibility. Even though they didn't do anything, they need to take responsibility for how they are reacting, how they react to that situation, which is, listen, if you'd done 20 years in prison for a crime you didn't commit and you were addicted to heroin, crack and whatever else, I would be like, understand why, because what's happened to you is so traumatizing.
Yeah.
But you need to choose. You need to choose whether you want to step outside that and go, I don't want to be that. And
Yeah.
it's hard, very, very hard. So I'm just kind of wanting to, I'm just kind of looking at when did that time come for you, Taylor? When did you go, I'm fucked? Like,
Yeah.
I need to step out of this. Well, how did you do it? When was your moment?
Man, first of all, just to touch on what you were saying, that acceptance and revenge, that acceptance piece. You're absolutely right. It's for them, and also, what do people want? They want revenge. That old adage, the best revenge is success, right? And so
Yes.
that's what story you tell yourself. You're like, yeah, fuck these people, left me to rot. I watch. I want them to watch this. Watch what I do with this, right? That's what I think could benefit those guys. It's because guess what? Revenge and hate's the easy thing.
Definitely.
It's the easy thing to fall to because it's immediate. Success and acceptance, man, takes a while, right? It takes a while, dude. So it's harder, right? It's not
Very
immediate,
hard.
man. Like let's be quite honest. We've all have things that we had to accept, and man, it's hard. There's still things, man. I'm not some finished piece in glass, man. I have like you said, your demons. Fuck, man. And that's what I like to share on my videos is kind of that journey. Because man, I got old ways of thinking, old relationships. I had stuff that comes up, and I'm just like, man, it'll ruin my day. And I'm like, man, this isn't me. Even doing all these things, and I still fall back into these ways of thinking. And I'm like, man, fuck it, right? And so just say that there's that piece, but that's also kind of segues into what you just asked me is what was the reason? When was the moment that I was just like, and I was suicidal living in my truck. I had a sawed-off shotgun on my lap, and I realized I had no money and nowhere to go, and no gas. Right? I was like, I had felt like, and it just had come. I had like come out of the fog of partying and drugs and all this stuff, and then kind of losing my job, and then the girlfriend, and then now I had nothing. I was on like an island in Hawaii. I was living in the jungle. Really, I parked my truck in the jungle where I knew nobody would kind of fuck with me because I knew I was running out of gas. Dead serious. And then I just realized, and the truck went off. I turned the engine off, and I was like, holy fuck, I got no money and nowhere to go and no title. And now all the world kind of came crashing down on me at the same moment. And I sat in that truck for 3 days, man.
Wow.
Drinking, eating Adderall, taking just like, just sitting there going, what the fuck happened? And and then I had that moment of clarity so that was the moment I was like, I'm fucked, dude. I have got to, this is bad and dangerous because I wasn't even sad. That's when I knew it was dangerous. I was planning. I was like, man, I don't want it to be messy. What do I do? How do I logistically do this? So
desensitized.
Yeah, I was like, I was crying, bawling. Yeah, I was so much further down the road than that. I was like, just matter of fact, done. I didn't want to try anymore. I was tired, and that's when I knew it was kind of a dangerous moment. So that was the moment I knew I was like a fuck. But I had a moment of clarity. Call it God, call it the universe, call it whatever. That was like, and this is that ownership piece. Was like, man, you're a fucking bitch, man. That's kind of the voice saying was like, listen to you. Me. I feel so bad. I is like what kept coming across is, man, you're just talking about thinking about yourself. You have a mom, you have a sister. Like, what is their life going to look like if you end it now? You have people, you have friends and stuff. I had just cut myself off from the world. And so that's when I made a decision. I was going to go in the French Foreign Legion and just kind of, if I was going to die, I was going to do it with my boots on type thing. Maybe they'll let me deploy but at least I'm going to give it one more push. And so that's when I kind of started arranging my affairs and flew to, and 8 days later, I was in France, man. I took out some fast cash loans, bro, from like, and I was like, I'll pay this back later. Like some loan shark never cost me probably like $8,000 for like $500, but that's how I got to France, man. And that's kind of when I went in and I went in with the direct, deliberate possibility of, okay, I'm going to tell a great story. I'm going to write a badass story and kind of reset this. or I'm going to go into the mercenary world into Africa and I'll speak French. That was kind of my angle. So I was just like, I'm going to write a badass story and let's see what the fuck happens, man.
I honestly, it's amazing. I just love to see people who are open and truthful with that. See, like the way, obviously Tcav, you've got Tcav, and you've got like your the way you operate on social media, and I just want the viewers to kind of know, like, obviously the real Taylor, right?
Yeah.
And this is what we've got to know. We've got to know the real Taylor tonight. A person who's so in tune with herself, a person who has got demons but has got a massive level of consciousness and knows where they're going and has got their head straight, but has also been in a space where these people who I love to try and help and try and get the message out to, you've been there as well. You've been there when you've been sitting and you've actually been that person sitting with a sawn-off shotgun in a car ready to kill yourself.
Yeah.
So it's just amazing to hear that story and just to see where you are now. It's just, honestly, I take my hat off to you so much for your honesty, for the way that you conduct yourself, for the way that you inspire people. Just a wee thing that I would like. Social media is fake, right? And I just want people to know that. I'm not saying you're fake. I love your stuff, T, and anybody that's watching this should definitely follow you because your stuff's great. But 99% of the people on it, it's like you never see the bad side. It's like you, as you were saying earlier, you've got your demons, you've got your time, you go fuck it. But you wouldn't put that on social media. Do you know what I mean? So you only show the good parts of your life. We all do it. We only show what we want the society to see. And I think a lot of people are consumed now with exterior validation from social media. They need that validation. How do you deal with that? Do you just kind of switch yourself after that, Taylor? Do you just kind of go, that'll come because of what I'm doing everything the right way? Or do you, is there a strategy behind that? Like, obviously, how you use your social media? How does that work?
So I know for a fact too, I could get, like, I'm pretty vulnerable on my YouTube, right? Because that's long form. And I try to chop and give things that are pretty honest on my Instagram too. And I always I could always get more real, right? Because a lot of times our low vibrational moments, we're not even thinking about getting the phone out and recording, right? It's just not logistically where our head's at. And so, I always look for ways I can get more real, right? And I also like, though, to use it as just to put some positivity into the ether and raise some consciousness in the ether. So that's kind of how I like my social media to be used, is if for nothing else, I don't care if people fucking hate me, man. I got tons of hate mail. I'm sure you get it too. It's shocking that you can say something positive and people will be like, fuck this guy. It's the weirdest thing, right? It's a baffling anomaly, but I get it because people are lost. They're so fucking lost. And so what I like to do is, man, even if you love me or hate me, make it interesting, right? Got to be entertaining because that's what it is. And raise people's consciousness, right? Get the message across no matter what. Because the tattoos and all the gold teeth, man, it's to catch people's attention. It's done deliberately. It's to catch people's attention so they'll just listen for 1 fucking second. All I need them to do is listen for 1 second, man, so that I can deliver the message, right? Everything's done deliberately.
It's that brutal honesty that's that I love about you. That brutal honesty that you can. It's very rare in this world that you'll get a man who can, like, I'm not gonna, like, Andrew Tate's Andrew Tate, right? I don't, like, he is who he is. He's done well for himself, but the guy couldn't get vulnerable if he tried. And I don't believe that he's totally happy either. I would say that you're a much better person to look at or follow than, like, Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate, he's got his moments and he's articulate, he's clever, he knows what he's strategic, he knows what he's doing. But I don't think he would be in the same headspace that you're in. I think you're inspirational because you're able to get vulnerable, you're able to talk about trauma, you're able to speak about times when it was hard, you don't shy away from that, which I think I'm similar to. You wear your heart on your sleeve.
Yeah.
Which is kind of something that social media has kind of stole. So you see a lot of people depressed. You see a lot of people, like, I speak to people, and if you've seen their social media, you would think they were living the best life in the world.
Yeah.
And then when you actually speak to them, they're like, Sean, can you talk to me? I'm like really depressed. And I'm like, what? Like, what the fuck?
Baffling.
What are you talking about? But you can see I mean, obviously, I don't know, but I see your aura. I can see your whole aura, and I can see the positivity that you're giving out. And I just love your message, Tcav. I think you're brilliant. But so just to kind of take up, obviously, I know we're on a kind of time scale here, right? So, like, obviously, just to kind of finish up, I've absolutely loved this podcast, by the way. I think it's been brilliant.
Me too, bro. This has been great.
So, like, just to kind of finish up, and just kind of say, what would be your kind of message for? I'll let you say, like, for the young people first, because I think you've got a good message to tell the young people. Like, some of the young people that watch my show, maybe are in about crime or whatever, things like that, and maybe kind of things like that. I always tell them, stay away from it. It's a horrible life. It's a life that you really don't want to do. What would be your message to the kind of younger generation?
Define what success looks like early. What do you want? And it goes back to that question, right? What do you want, man? Do you want a successful, beautiful life? Well, you got to make beautiful choices for that to happen. Selling drugs, staying out till all hours of the night, fighting in front of bars, going to jail, waking up hungover and feeling like shit. Bro, that's not beautiful choices. Waking up bloody and fucking with legal problems. Dude, that is a messy, messy life. That beautiful life that you envision, if that's what you picture, then have at it, right? If that's what you want, then have at it. But if you really want the beautiful house, the beautiful wife, that beautiful life with some fucking money in the bank, well, guess what? You better start making responsible choices. You better start thinking clearly and making those good choices. And then it's having information and good positive role models, right? Because you have to have what people want, right? To send any message, you have to be living that really good life. Man, my fucking life's great. I'm happy. You know, I have a beautiful girlfriend. I live in Southern California, man. I've had some experiences. Man, I'm happy. And I'm still seeking more success, right? Helping people, trying to do the right shit. But you have to lead by example. So if you're not living that life, man, then you got nothing to say, because people have to want something that you have for them to listen to you. And so, man, I'd say to those people, identify somebody that you respect and that you like. Reach out to them. Ask them what the fuck they're doing. Find a mentor. Find somebody that will help you and guide you. And guess what? You need a plan. You don't build a house without a plan, right? You need a blueprint. Why not ask somebody that's already done it? It makes only sense. So I always say at the end of my YouTube, be smart. Be smart means this is my life. It's the most important thing I'm ever going to build ever. I should probably have a plan and not just wing it like everybody does. Let's get a plan, find somebody you like, and then start working it, man. And guess what? This is what I would tell them too. It's not going to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect. Don't get discouraged. Get back on the horse. Get tough emotionally and mentally. Man, get disciplined. Be good to yourself. Be good to your family, man. It's okay. It's not cool being a fucking drunk asshole anymore. Maybe that was in the past, but that's not cool anymore, man.
No, brilliant message, and I think Scott, I don't know how it is over where you are, Taylor, but Scotland's got a huge problem with addiction at the moment, a massive problem with addiction.
And it's international, brother.
I know, and I thought, do you know what? See, like I've said it before. Like you look at the West, right? You look at the West, and we I think if you do well, you should be successful. You should be allowed to have a good life. I don't necessarily my political. I don't think that you should be allowed to have £10 billion in a bank because your dad had it, and maybe a Saudi prince that's done absolutely nothing in the world has got like £20 billion and there's children starving. I don't agree with that necessarily. I think people like yourself that work hard, that have been through stuff, real true people, deserve a good life at the end of that, and especially when you're building it, making the right choices and stuff. But over here, there definitely is something wrong, man. I think society's sick, Taylor. I think society's sick in the way that it needs a bit of stoicism or something. It needs something like that. It needs like something that's pumped into the ether, as you were talking about earlier. To and sometimes I think to myself, the vibration is raising, and then I see some stuff and I go, it's no, and then I get pulled back into it. So I'm trying my hardest not to go to these exterior, get involved in what's happening in Palestine and Israel, get involved in stuff. I'll say my piece and I'll always say what I think, but if I think about it, it makes me sad. I watched, I don't know if you've ever seen the film. It's called The Sound of Freedom.
Yeah, I'm familiar with all that stuff. I was tied in with a lot of guys that did a lot of the stuff for chasing down child sex traffickers and stuff. Man, that's a dirty world, bro. It's an evil world out here, right?
I know. But honestly, Tim Ballard, right? He's the only policeman that. Well, obviously, but he's the only it's the only film I've ever watched where I'm actually rooting for the police. I was actually rooting for
man, that's classic, bro.
Only film I was crying all the way through it. Go on, man! That Tim Ballard, love him, absolute legend. But as I say, I think society's sick. I think there's a lot of things going on. People don't really want to take responsibility for what is happening. But I think what you can do, and what to an extent myself, obviously I'm nowhere you're further on in the journey than me, I think. But I'm coming behind you, if you know what I mean. I will be coming behind you. But I think the message is people need to take responsibility for themselves. There's nobody coming to take your hand and take you away to this magical world that you've got. You need to take responsibility and accept what's happening in your life at this moment.
Yeah.
Accept it. That's the first step. As soon as you accept it, you can start moving and building. What you said, you can start building that life.
Mm-hmm.
But Taylor, listen, honestly, I've absolutely loved this podcast, man. Brilliant, absolute legend. So I'm just going to leave you with the final message, man, with just something that, because obviously this is when absolutely nowhere near the framework that I wrote it, and it's been absolutely brilliant. But if you want to give the last message just to kind of anybody out there that's maybe suffering a wee bit of thingy, you've kind of already said it, do you know what I mean? I just always give the last message. And anything that you want to promote, anything like your page, anything like your YouTube, anything like that you want to promote, just give us a wee shout. So on you go, take the last stage, Taylor.
Yeah. If you're watching this and you have that desire to be better, guess what? You deserve it. And you can be. And you will be. And guess what? You can enjoy this process. This isn't a miserable process. It's the opposite of that. Becoming more conscious is an unbelievably freeing process. You start to feel good, to feel aware, to live aligned, to be living in a way that, man, I'm fucking happy every day. It's possible. Life's not that complicated when you strip it down to the basics. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it's simple, right? If you live simply, a lot of your problems will clear up. And it's an enjoyable process to learn how to live better, right? You only get feeling better and better as you live better. And it starts with your thoughts. And then it in turn turns into your actions. So you got to be conscious about how you think. So it's changing how you think. and enjoy that process. And if anybody needs to get a hold of me, always my website, they can get to contact me, taylorcavanaugh.com. You can get access to my YouTube, my Instagram, and my email. You can contact me directly there. My Instagram, Tcav official. Always Johnny on the spot with my DMs. You can shoot me a DM. You talk to me directly. And my YouTube, Tcav TV, where they got every Monday and Thursday, we're coming out with a new long form video where we dive into it. And Tcav TV, I always check the comments and whatever. So all those mediums, you'll always get me direct. I don't use any handlers or anybody else answering my shit. So that's it, man. So I really appreciate this time. This was an unbelievable conversation, bro.
Brilliant. Honestly, Taylor, I've loved it every minute, and hopefully we can keep in touch. I don't want to lose touch with you, definitely keep in touch with you, man. But listen, Tcav Social Sessions, absolute legend, and definitely back. Oh, just another wee last thing to just say, obviously, just to give Ryan a wee mention, obviously, we's trading guys. I know you do a wee bit of trading with Ryan. Yeah. I'm actually just in the process of kind of learning that kind of stuff, but that's an amazing platform as well, just to kind of let people know about, just to give Ryan a wee shout out, because he was the one that put us in touch with each other. So just to give Ryan Mack, aka Bully Bolang, on social media, you can get him on YouTube.
Ryan's the man.
Absolute legend as well.
Yeah, Ryan is the man. Ryan is the man, dude. Ryan is the man.
No, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your weekend, Tcav. It's been a pleasure.